The morning sun cast long shadows across the cobblestones of Windsor Castle as Queen Camilla adjusted her silk gloves one final time. Today marked a historic moment that would forever change how the world viewed the British monarchy. After months of careful planning and quiet preparation, she was about to reveal something that had remained hidden from public view for decades. The Queen Consort stood in her private chambers, gazing at her reflection in the antique mirror that had witnessed countless royal preparations. Her lady-in-waiting, Margaret, bustled around the room, making final adjustments to the ceremonial robes that would accompany this momentous occasion. The weight of tradition pressed heavily on Camilla's shoulders, yet she felt a strange sense of liberation knowing that today would mark the end of a long-kept secret. Outside her window, crowds had already begun gathering despite the early hour. News of a special announcement had spread quickly through social media and traditional news outlets, though none knew exactly what to expect. Royal correspondents positioned themselves strategically around the castle grounds, their cameras ready to capture whatever historic moment was about to unfold. The Queen Consort had spent sleepless nights contemplating this decision. For years, she had carried the burden of knowing something that could reshape public perception of the monarchy itself. The item she was about to reveal had been passed down through generations, hidden away from public scrutiny due to its controversial nature and the questions it might raise about royal legitimacy and tradition. As Margaret fastened the final clasp on her ceremonial necklace, Camilla felt her heart racing. She thought about King Charles, who had given his full support to her decision despite understanding the potential consequences. Their marriage had already weathered countless storms of public opinion, and this revelation might bring another wave of scrutiny. Yet they both agreed that transparency was essential for the monarchy's future. The mahogany box sitting on her dressing table seemed to pulse with significance. Inside lay the crown that would change everything. Not the St. Edward's crown or the imperial state crown that the public knew, but something far more personal and potentially explosive. This crown had been crafted in secret during the reign of Queen Victoria, commissioned under circumstances that had been deliberately obscured by palace historians for over a century. Royal protocol demanded that certain traditions be followed, but Camilla had decided that some secrets had been kept too long. The weight of public expectation, combined with her own desire for authenticity, had finally convinced her that revelation was better than continued concealment. She picked up the ornate key that would unlock not just the box, but potentially a new chapter in royal history. The corridors of Windsor Castle seemed unusually quiet as staff members went about their morning duties with a sense of anticipation. Even the usually chatty kitchen staff spoke in hushed tones, aware that something significant was about to happen. The castle guards, normally stoic and unmovable, seemed more alert than usual, their eyes scanning the growing crowds with increased vigilance. Camilla's mind drifted to the research she had conducted in the royal archives. Late nights spent poring over dusty documents and faded photographs had revealed a story that challenged everything she thought she knew about royal tradition. The crown she was about to reveal had been worn by queens who had faced their own moments of doubt and decision, women who had chosen courage over comfort in defining their legacy. The telephone beside her bed rang softly, interrupting her contemplation. It was Charles calling from his own preparations in another wing of the castle. His voice carried both concern and pride as he reminded her that whatever happened today, they would face it together, as they had faced everything else in their complicated journey to the throne. As she replaced the receiver, Camilla realized that this moment represented more than just the revealing of a hidden crown. It symbolized her own transformation, from a woman once vilified by the press to a queen consort, ready to make difficult decisions in service of truth and transparency. The journey had been long and often painful, but it had led to this moment of potential redemption and authentic leadership. The clock on the mantelpiece chimed 9 times, signaling that the hour of revelation was approaching. Margaret announced that the carriage was ready, and the ceremonial guard had taken their positions. The Queen Consort took one final look at herself in the mirror, seeing not just a royal figure in elaborate dress, but a woman who had chosen to trust the public with a truth that could change the monarchy forever. With steady hands, she lifted the mahogany box and tucked it securely under her arm. The weight felt both physical and metaphorical as she prepared to walk into a future that none of them could fully predict. The crown inside that box held secrets that would challenge assumptions, raise questions, and potentially alter the very foundation of royal tradition that had stood for centuries. The grand procession began as Queen Camilla emerged from the castle's main entrance, her ceremonial robes flowing behind her in the crisp morning air. The crowd's murmur rose to a crescendo as photographers clicked frantically, trying to capture every detail of this unexpected royal appearance. Unlike typical royal events, there had been no advance notice, no carefully orchestrated media preparation, which only heightened the sense of mystery surrounding the occasion. Captain James Harrison stood at attention with the royal guard, his polished boots reflecting the morning sun. A 20-year veteran of royal security, he had seen countless ceremonies and state occasions, but something about today felt different. The Queen Consort's demeanor suggested this was no ordinary royal engagement. His trained eye noticed the mahogany box she carried, its ornate brass fittings catching the light as she walked with purposeful steps toward the designated area. The royal guard had been given unusual instructions that morning. Instead of their typical formation around the perimeter, they were positioned in a ceremonial circle, creating an intimate space for whatever revelation was about to unfold. Captain Harrison had questioned the unusual arrangement during their morning briefing, but his superior officers had simply emphasized the importance of maintaining absolute discretion and readiness for any eventuality. Media representatives pressed closer to the barriers, their telephoto lenses aimed at the mahogany box that seemed to be the focal point of everyone's attention. Royal correspondent Sarah Mitchell, who had covered the monarchy for 2 decades, found herself genuinely perplexed by the lack of advance information. Usually, royal events were choreographed months in advance with detailed press releases and background briefings. This spontaneous gathering suggested something unprecedented was about to occur. Queen Camilla reached the center of the ceremonial circle and paused, her eyes sweeping across the assembled crowd. She could see curious faces pressed against the castle gates, tourists who had arrived expecting a routine changing of the guard, but instead found themselves witnesses to an unscheduled royal event. The weight of their expectation was palpable, and she felt the familiar flutter of nervousness that had accompanied every significant moment of her public life. The mahogany box seemed to grow heavier in her arms as she considered the magnitude of what she was about to do. Inside lay a crown that had been deliberately hidden from public view since 1887, crafted during a period of royal scandal that palace historians had worked tirelessly to obscure. The intricate metalwork told a story of secret marriages, disputed legitimacy, and royal bloodlines that challenged the official narrative taught in history books around the world. Captain Harrison noticed the Queen Consort's slight hesitation and instinctively stepped forward, his training kicking in to assess potential security concerns. However, this movement brought him closer to the unfolding drama than protocol typically allowed. His position gave him an unprecedented view of the ornate box and the careful way Queen Camilla handled it, suggesting its contents were both precious and fragile. The crowd's anticipation reached a fever pitch as Camilla began to speak, her voice carrying clearly across the courtyard despite the lack of amplification. She spoke of duty and transparency, of the responsibility that came with wearing any crown, and of the courage required to confront uncomfortable truths about the past. Her words hinted at revelations that would challenge long-held beliefs about royal succession and the very legitimacy of certain historical claims. As she placed the mahogany box on the ceremonial pedestal that had been hastily erected for the occasion, the guards around her maintained their rigid composure, despite the extraordinary nature of what they were witnessing. Captain Harrison found himself torn between his duty to remain impassive and his genuine curiosity about the contents of the mysterious box. His years of service had taught him to observe everything while revealing nothing, but today tested those skills to their limit. The Queen Consort's fingers trembled slightly as she inserted the ornate key into the box's lock. The clicking sound seemed unnaturally loud in the suddenly quiet courtyard, where even the most persistent photographers had stopped their incessant clicking to witness this moment of revelation. The lid opened slowly, revealing layers of protective silk that had preserved whatever lay within for over a century. Royal protocol demanded that the guards maintain their positions regardless of what transpired, but Captain Harrison could feel the tension rippling through his unit. The younger guards, less experienced in maintaining composure during unusual events, showed subtle signs of curiosity as they tried to glimpse the contents of the now open box without breaking formation. The silk wrappings fell away to reveal a crown, unlike anything in the current royal collection. Its design incorporated elements that seemed familiar yet foreign, blending traditional British royal symbolism with motifs that suggested influences from other European monarchies. The craftsmanship was exquisite, with precious stones arranged in patterns that told their own story of royal connections and forgotten alliances. As Queen Camilla lifted the crown from its protective nest, gasps could be heard from the crowd. Even from a distance, the unique design was clearly visible, and royal enthusiasts in the audience began speculating about its origins and significance. The crown's band bore inscriptions in multiple languages, suggesting a complex history that spanned national boundaries and royal houses. Captain Harrison's training had prepared him for many scenarios, but watching the Queen Consort reveal what appeared to be a previously unknown piece of the crown jewels was not among them. His radio crackled softly with messages from his commanders, all seeking updates on the situation and confirmation that security protocols were being maintained, despite the unusual circumstances unfolding before them. The moment Queen Camilla placed the mysterious crown upon her head, a collective gasp rose from the assembled crowd. The crown seemed to transform her entire appearance, its unique design casting intricate shadows across her face, while the precious stones caught and reflected the morning light in ways that made her seem almost ethereal. Captain Harrison, despite his years of professional training, felt his breath catch as he witnessed this unprecedented moment in royal history. The crown's design was unlike anything he had seen in his extensive knowledge of royal regalia. Where traditional British crowns featured the familiar symbols of lions, crosses, and imperial motifs, this crown incorporated Celtic knots intertwined with Norse ravens and what appeared to be French fleur-de-lis. The combination suggested a heritage that crossed traditional boundaries and challenged conventional understanding of British royal symbolism. Queen Camilla began to speak, her voice taking on a different quality as if the crown itself lent authority to her words. She revealed that this crown had been commissioned in secret by Queen Victoria for her daughter Princess Beatrice, but had never been publicly acknowledged due to the controversial circumstances surrounding its creation. The crown represented a marriage alliance that had been deliberately hidden from history books, involving connections to European royal houses that would have complicated British diplomatic relations at the time. The inscription around the crown's base, now clearly visible as she turned her head to address different sections of the crowd, contained text in Latin, Old English, and what appeared to be Gaelic. Royal historians in the audience frantically took notes, realizing they were witnessing the revelation of a piece of royal history that had been successfully concealed for over a century and would require complete reassessment of accepted historical narratives. Captain Harrison found himself in an impossible position. His duty required him to remain impassive and focused on security, but the magnitude of what he was witnessing made it nearly impossible to maintain complete professional detachment. The crown seemed to tell a story that challenged everything he had learned about royal succession and legitimacy during his years of service protecting the monarchy. As Queen Camilla continued her explanation, she revealed that the crown had been passed down through a secret line of succession, hidden away in private royal collections, and moved between various royal residences to avoid discovery. Each queen who had possessed it had faced the same difficult decision she now faced, whether to reveal its existence and the complex history it represented or continue the tradition of concealment. The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some royal enthusiasts seemed thrilled by the revelation of a previously unknown piece of royal history, while others appeared confused or skeptical about the implications of what they were witnessing. The presence of international media representatives meant that news of this revelation would spread globally within hours, potentially sparking debates about royal legitimacy and historical accuracy in countries around the world. Captain Harrison noticed unusual activity among his fellow guards. While they maintained their ceremonial positions, subtle glances and slight shifts in posture indicated that even the most experienced members of the Royal Guard were struggling to process what they were seeing. The revelation of hidden royal regalia was unprecedented in modern times, and none of their training had prepared them for such an eventuality. The Queen Consort's demeanor had changed noticeably since donning the crown. Where she had appeared nervous and uncertain during the approach to the revelation, she now seemed to embody a different kind of royal authority. The crown appeared to connect her to something deeper than her role as consort, suggesting a legitimacy that went beyond her marriage to the current king and tapped into older, more complex royal bloodlines. Technical experts in the crowd were already speculating about the crown's age and authenticity. The craftsmanship appeared consistent with Victorian-era techniques, but the incorporation of seemingly ancient Celtic and Norse elements suggested either remarkable historical research or access to much older, royal artifacts that had been incorporated into the crown's design during its secret creation. Queen Camilla revealed that the decision to make this crown public had not been made lightly. She had spent months consulting with constitutional experts, historians, and even international diplomatic advisors to understand the potential ramifications of revealing its existence. The crown represented claims and connections that could complicate current royal succession laws and international relationships between various European monarchies. The intricate metalwork of the crown seemed to shift and change as Queen Camilla moved, creating an almost hypnotic effect that held the attention of everyone present. Captain Harrison found himself studying the crown's details despite his professional obligations, noting how certain elements seemed to echo design patterns found in ancient British artifacts, while others appeared to reference continental European royal traditions. As she spoke, Queen Camilla explained that the crown had been worn in secret ceremonies by several previous royal women, each of whom had contributed to the complex history it represented. The crown had witnessed private coronations, secret marriages, and clandestine diplomatic meetings that had shaped European history in ways that had never been publicly acknowledged or recorded in official historical documents. The implications of the crown's existence extended far beyond mere historical curiosity. If the claims associated with it were true, it could potentially affect current succession laws, challenge accepted narratives about royal bloodlines, and raise questions about the legitimacy of various European monarchies that had been considered settled for generations. Captain Harrison realized he was witnessing not just a royal revelation, but a moment that could reshape understanding of European royal history. The atmosphere in the courtyard had grown electric with tension as Queen Camilla continued her revelations, the mysterious crown seeming to pulse with significance upon her head. Captain Harrison felt the weight of history pressing down on the moment, knowing that he and his fellow guards were witnessing something that would be discussed and analyzed for generations to come. His radio remained silent, suggesting that even his commanding officers were too stunned by the unfolding events to issue standard security updates. What happened next would forever change Captain Harrison's understanding of his role in royal protection. As Queen Camilla reached the climax of her explanation about the crown's origins, she made an unexpected announcement that sent shockwaves through the assembled crowd. The crown, she revealed, had been intended for a queen, who had never officially existed in the historical record, a woman whose very existence had been erased from official documentation to protect the reputation of the monarchy. The crowd erupted in murmurs and gasps as Queen Camilla explained that this hidden queen had been her own great-great-grandmother, making her connection to the crown not just ceremonial but genuinely hereditary. This revelation meant that her position as queen consort was not solely dependent on her marriage to King Charles, but had deeper historical roots that predated their relationship by over a century. Captain Harrison felt his training desert him for a moment as the implications of this announcement sank in. The woman he had been protecting as the king's wife was revealing herself to be connected to the royal bloodline through channels that had been deliberately concealed from public knowledge. The crown on her head was not just a historical artifact but tangible proof of a legitimate claim to royal status that existed independently of her current position. The queen consort's voice grew stronger as she continued her explanation, describing how her family had preserved documents, photographs, and personal artifacts that corroborated the existence of this hidden royal lineage. She had spent years researching her own genealogy before discovering the connection, initially thinking it might be family folklore until archived documents in European libraries confirmed the extraordinary truth. The revelation explained many puzzling aspects of Queen Camilla's acceptance within royal circles that had always seemed unusual to royal observers. Her natural ease with royal protocol, Her intuitive understanding of royal responsibilities and her seamless integration into the monarchy now had a completely different context. She had not been learning to be royal, she had been returning to her authentic heritage. Captain Harrison's mind raced as he considered the security implications of this revelation. If Queen Camilla's claims were true, it meant the Royal Protection Unit had been operating under incomplete information about the person they were protecting. The discovery of legitimate royal bloodline changed threat assessments and required completely different considerations for her personal security going forward. The crowd had grown larger as word of the extraordinary announcement spread through social media and news outlets. People were arriving from across London, drawn by reports that something unprecedented was happening at Windsor Castle. The gates were surrounded by curious onlookers, royal historians rushing to the scene, and international journalists who had abandoned other assignments to witness this historic moment. Queen Camilla announced that she had brought additional evidence to support her claims. From beneath her ceremonial robes, she produced a series of documents that had been sealed in protective covers. These included birth certificates, marriage records, and correspondence between European royal houses that had never been part of the official royal archives but had been preserved by her family through generations of careful custody. The documents were presented to a hastily assembled panel of experts that included the keeper of the royal archives, representatives from the College of Arms, and independent historians who happened to be in attendance. As these experts examined the papers with magnifying glasses and specialized equipment, the crowd waited in tense silence for their preliminary assessment of the document's authenticity. Captain Harrison observed the Queen Consort's demeanor throughout this process and noted how confident she appeared despite the enormous risk she was taking. False claims to royal heritage were serious matters that could result in significant legal and social consequences. Her willingness to submit evidence for immediate expert examination suggested either remarkable courage or complete confidence in the legitimacy of her claims. The first expert to speak was Dr. Elizabeth Thornton, a leading authority on Victorian-era royal documentation. After examining the papers for nearly 20 minutes, she announced that the documents appeared to be authentic period pieces, with paper, ink, and seals consistent with their claimed dates of origin. The handwriting matched known samples from the claimed authors, and the official seals showed no signs of modern reproduction. As this preliminary authentication was announced, Captain Harrison felt the ground shifting beneath his feet, not literally, but in terms of his understanding of the monarchy he had sworn to protect. The revelation that Queen Camilla possessed legitimate royal heritage independent of her marriage to King Charles changed everything about her role and status within the royal family structure. The crown seemed to gleam more brightly as expert confirmation of the supporting documents lent credibility to Queen Camilla's extraordinary claims. The precious stones caught the light in ways that seemed almost supernatural, as if the crown itself was celebrating its emergence from over a century of enforced secrecy into the full light of public acknowledgement and historical recognition. Queen Camilla announced that she had made this revelation not to challenge existing royal structures, but to bring complete transparency to her role and to honor the memory of the hidden queen whose existence had been deliberately erased from history. She emphasized that her loyalty to King Charles and her commitment to her duties as Queen Consort remained unchanged, but that she felt obligated to acknowledge the full truth of her heritage. The moment of truth arrived as Captain Harrison stepped forward, breaking centuries of royal protocol in a way that would forever define his legacy within the royal guard. Instead of maintaining his prescribed distance and impassive demeanor, he approached Queen Camilla directly, his movements deliberate but respectful. The crowd held its collective breath, uncertain whether they were witnessing a security response or something entirely unprecedented in royal ceremonial history. What Captain Harrison did next surprised everyone, including himself. He slowly removed his ceremonial helmet and placed it on the ground beside him, then dropped to one knee in a gesture of recognition that went beyond his official duties as a guard. This was not the standard royal salute required by his position, but a personal acknowledgement of what he had witnessed and heard during Queen Camilla's extraordinary revelation about her hidden royal heritage. The symbolism of his action was immediately apparent to royal protocol experts in the crowd. By removing his helmet and kneeling, Captain Harrison was treating Queen Camilla not merely as the king's consort, but as a royal figure with independent legitimacy. His gesture suggested that he recognized her claims and was offering the same respect he would give to any member of the royal bloodline, regardless of their official position within the current succession structure. Queen Camilla appeared moved by this unexpected show of support from a member of the royal guard. Her eyes filled with tears as she looked down at the kneeling captain, understanding that his gesture represented acceptance from the very institution charged with protecting the monarchy. The moment created a powerful visual that photographers captured from every angle, knowing they were documenting a historic break from traditional royal protocol. Other members of the royal guard found themselves in an unprecedented situation. Captain Harrison's action was completely outside normal procedures, yet the authenticity of Queen Camilla's revelation and the supporting evidence made his response seem appropriate rather than insubordinate. One by one, additional guards began following his example, removing their helmets and kneeling in recognition of the newly revealed royal heritage they had just witnessed being authenticated. The crowd's reaction was immediate and emotional. Many people began applauding, while others were visibly moved to tears by the unexpected display of respect from the royal guard. Royal correspondents frantically took notes and provided live commentary, recognizing that they were witnessing a moment that would be studied and discussed by historians for generations to come. Queen Camilla spoke directly to Captain Harrison, thanking him for his service and acknowledging that his recognition meant more to her than official proclamations or legal documents. She explained that having the respect of those charged with protecting the monarchy validated her decision to reveal the truth about her heritage, even though it had required her to risk everything she had built as queen consort. The implications of the guard's collective response extended far beyond the immediate ceremonial context. Their recognition of Queen Camilla's independent royal status suggested that the revelation had been accepted by the institution responsible for protecting royal legitimacy. This institutional acceptance would likely influence how other official bodies and international observers would respond to her extraordinary claims. Captain Harrison rose and spoke briefly, explaining that his response had been instinctive rather than planned. He said that witnessing the revelation of hidden royal history and seeing the evidence supporting Queen Camilla's claims had convinced him that she deserved recognition for her courage in bringing truth to light, regardless of the personal and institutional risks involved in making such revelations public. The crowd had grown to several thousand people as news of the event spread throughout London and beyond. International news crews were arriving, having chartered helicopters and rushed equipment to Windsor Castle to cover what was clearly becoming one of the most significant royal events in modern history. The revelation of hidden royal bloodlines and the unprecedented response from the royal guard created a perfect storm of historical significance and dramatic human interest. Queen Camilla announced that she would be working with historians and genealogical experts to ensure that the complete truth about her hidden royal ancestor would be properly documented and integrated into official royal historical records. She emphasized that this process would be conducted transparently, with full public access to the evidence and expert analysis of all claims and supporting documentation. The mysterious crown seemed to shimmer with new significance, as Queen Camilla explained its role in preserving the memory of the hidden queen whose existence had been erased from official history. She described how wearing the crown connected her not just to her own heritage, but to all the royal women throughout history who had faced difficult choices between personal truth and public expectation. Captain Harrison's radio finally crackled to life as his commanding officers sought updates on the situation and guidance on how to proceed with such an unprecedented breach of protocol. However, the captain's response was measured and confident, explaining that he and his unit were responding appropriately to an extraordinary revelation that had been authenticated by experts and represented a significant moment in royal history. The interaction between Queen Camilla and the royal guard had transformed what began as a historical revelation into a deeply human moment of recognition and acceptance. The guard's willingness to acknowledge her heritage independent of her current official status demonstrated that institutions could adapt and respond appropriately to new information, even when it challenged established procedures and expectations. As the formal ceremony began to wind down, Queen Camilla announced that the crown would be placed on permanent public display, allowing future generations to learn about the hidden royal history it represented. This decision to make the crown accessible rather than returning it to secrecy demonstrated her commitment to transparency and her determination to ensure that historical truth would not be concealed again. The aftermath of Queen Camilla's revelation created ripple effects that extended far beyond the walls of Windsor Castle. Within hours of Captain Harrison's unprecedented show of recognition, news of the event had spread across every major international news network, with royal experts and historians appearing on television programs to analyze the implications of the discovered royal bloodline and the supporting evidence that had been authenticated in real time. Captain Harrison found himself at the center of attention he had never sought. His decision to break protocol and recognize Queen Camilla's independent royal heritage had been captured in photographs that were already being called iconic by media commentators. The image of a seasoned royal guard kneeling before the Queen Consort while she wore a previously unknown crown had become a symbol of institutional adaptability and personal courage. In the face of extraordinary circumstances, the Royal Guard as an institution faced unprecedented questions about protocol and procedure. Captain Harrison's commanding officers, initially concerned about his breach of standard operating procedures, found themselves defending his actions as appropriate under the unique circumstances. The revelation of legitimate royal heritage, they argued, required adaptive responses that went beyond standard protocol guidelines designed for routine ceremonial occasions. Queen Camilla spent the following days working closely with historians, genealogists, and legal experts to ensure that all aspects of her revelation were thoroughly documented and verified. Additional evidence emerged from family collections and European archives, strengthening the case for her claims and providing a more complete picture of the hidden royal lineage that had been successfully concealed for over a century. The mysterious crown underwent extensive examination by experts from the British Museum, the Tower of London, and independent archaeological specialists. Their analysis confirmed that the crown was indeed a Victorian-era creation, but one that incorporated elements from much older royal artifacts. The complexity of its design and the quality of its craftsmanship supported claims about its significance and the important role it had played in preserving hidden royal history. International reaction to the revelation was swift and varied. Several European royal houses acknowledged that their own archives contained references to the hidden queen, whose existence Queen Camilla had revealed, and some expressed willingness to share previously classified documents that might provide additional context for understanding the complex diplomatic and personal relationships that had necessitated the historical cover-up. Captain Harrison received official recognition for his handling of the unprecedented situation, with senior palace officials praising his ability to respond appropriately to extraordinary circumstances while maintaining the dignity and security requirements of his position. His actions were cited as an example of how institutional representatives could adapt to new information while maintaining their core responsibilities and values. The public response to Queen Camilla's revelation was overwhelmingly positive, with opinion polls showing strong support for her decision to bring transparency to royal history. Many people expressed appreciation for her willingness to risk her position and reputation in order to honor the memory of a royal ancestor whose existence had been deliberately hidden from historical records. The crown went on permanent display in a specially designed exhibition at Windsor Castle, where visitors could learn about the complex history it represented and view the supporting documents that had authenticated Queen Camilla's extraordinary claims. The exhibition included interactive elements that allowed visitors to explore the genealogical research and historical investigation that had led to the crown's revelation. Captain Harrison was promoted to a senior position within the Royal Guard, with specific responsibilities for handling unusual ceremonial situations and training other guards in adaptive response protocols. His experience during Queen Camilla's revelation was used to develop new guidelines for situations where royal protocol might need to be modified to address unprecedented circumstances while maintaining appropriate security and dignity. The revelation had lasting effects on Queen Camilla's role within the royal family. While she continued her duties as queen consort, Her newly acknowledged independent royal heritage added a different dimension to her public appearances and official responsibilities. She became a more confident and authoritative figure, drawing strength from the knowledge that her royal status was rooted in historical legitimacy, rather than solely dependent on her marriage. The event strengthened the relationship between Queen Camilla and the royal guard, who came to see her not just as someone they were assigned to protect, but as a royal figure worthy of their personal respect and loyalty. Captain Harrison's initial gesture of recognition had established a new foundation of mutual respect that enhanced the effectiveness of royal protection services. King Charles publicly supported his wife's decision to reveal her hidden heritage, acknowledging that transparency and historical truth were essential values for a modern monarchy. His backing helped ensure that the revelation strengthened rather than complicated their relationship, and demonstrated that the royal family was capable of adapting to new information and changing circumstances. The long-term impact of Queen Camilla's revelation extended beyond royal circles to influence broader discussions about historical transparency, institutional adaptability, and the importance of preserving accurate historical records. Her courage in revealing hidden royal history inspired other institutions to examine their own archives and consider whether historical secrets might be better served by disclosure rather than continued concealment. Years later, the moment when Captain Harrison knelt before Queen Camilla while she wore the mysterious crown was remembered as a defining moment in modern royal history. It represented the intersection of personal courage, institutional flexibility, and historical truth, demonstrating that even the most traditional institutions could adapt and respond appropriately when faced with extraordinary revelations that challenged established understanding and required new forms of recognition and respect.